Well, hello everybody. So, hope this Wednesday evening finds you well. Um, we are in Grants here a little bit concerned about one of our members, Delise, but we heard that she had her test come back today and it is negative for COVID. So that's really good news, but she's still really not feeling very well. So those of you who live in Grants, anybody watching this, just say a prayer for Delise. She's feeling just not so good, under the weather. But anyway, good to be here with you again, and we are in part 4 of our impressive failures. And in this particular one, we're going to talk about leadership. And leadership is one of those hard topics because if you've ever been a leader or if you are a leader, I would say that I feel like as a leader, I have more failures than successes. And I don't know, maybe you do too, maybe you don't. But leadership is one of those really tricky things because in a lot of ways, our culture describes leadership and explains leadership in one way, and Jesus and Scripture explains it in another way. But we're going to look specifically at the story of Rehoboam. So let me give you just a little bit of background on Rehoboam, if you don't know who Rehoboam is. Rehoboam is a king of Israel, but in order to understand Rehoboam, you have to know where he came from. So if you know the whole history of, the Israelite kingdoms, the people of Israel, they came out of Egypt. They finally took their promised land, the land of Canaan, and they were ruled by judges for quite some time. The last judge is a judge and a prophet by the name of Samuel, and the people ask for a king, and Samuel doesn't want to give it to him, but God says, just go ahead and give it to him. And so they go ahead and so he goes ahead and gives the people of Israel a king. Their first king is a guy by the name of Saul, and Saul doesn't do so hot. So God replaces him with David. David is a good king. He makes some mistakes, but he's still a good king. His son Solomon takes over for him, and the reign of Solomon is known as the Golden Age of Israel. Israel is just super wealthy. They do really well. In fact, the biblical authors say that stone was like, silver was like stones on the ground. They were so rich. It was a very rich time. And then Solomon's son, a guy by the name of Rehoboam, takes over for his dad Solomon. So if you think about it, Rehoboam has everything going for him. He has really this just incredible inheritance. Things are just crazy good for him. He has so much money, he has so many resources that he inherits from his father. It's going really well. So let's pick up the story with Rehoboam taking over the kingdom. All right, let's start reading in 1 Kings chapter 12, starting in verse 1. Rehoboam went to Shechem, where all Israel had gathered to make him king. When Jeroboam, son of Nebat, heard of this, he returned from Egypt, for he had fled to Egypt to escape from King Solomon. So just a little bit of background on Jeroboam. So they didn't make this story up, because who would make the two main characters, Rehoboam and Jeroboam, right? Anyway, so Jeroboam is actually like this kind of really promising young man that Solomon sees, and he gives him some responsibility, and then a prophet comes to Jeroboam and says, hey, Solomon has not kept my commandments. He has married all these foreign women. He has done all the things that I've told him not to do. So I'm going to rip the kingdom out of his hand, and I'm going to give it to you, Jeroboam. Well, somehow Solomon finds this out, and Jeroboam runs off to Egypt, and he's there until now, after Solomon has died and Rehoboam has returned. So verse 3, the leaders of Israel summoned him And Jeroboam and hold on. My device is trying to restart. I don't want it to restart. Okay. All right. Not now. Okay, let me read that again. Verse 3. The leaders of Israel summoned him, and Jeroboam and the whole assembly of Israel went to speak to Rehoboam. So this really should kind of scare Rehoboam a little bit. The fact that you have a man that your father chased out of the country and felt very threatened by is coming to you with all the people, the text says. And I have a feeling this doesn't mean like every single person in Israel. It probably has the idea of he's there with the representatives, he's there with the elders, he's there with people from the people of Israel, but they're all represented. They're all there with Jeroboam. Okay, so here's what they say. Verse 4. Your father was a hard master, they said. Lighten the harsh demands and heavy taxes that your father imposed on us. Then we will be your loyal subjects. Rehoboam replied, Give me 3 days to think this over, then come back for my answer. So the people went away. So Jeroboam has a good start, right? He stops to think about it, right? And that's great. That's a great thing to do. But the story goes south from here. Verse 6. Then King Rehoboam discussed the matter with the older men who had counseled his father Solomon. What is your advice, he asked. How should I answer these people? Verse 7, the older counselors replied, If you are willing to be a servant to these people today and give them a favorable answer, they will always be your loyal subjects. But Rehoboam rejected their advice of the older men and instead asked the opinion of the young men who had grown up with him and were now his advisors. What is your advice? He asked them. How should I answer these people who want me to lighten the burdens imposed by my father? Verse 10. The young men replied, This is what you should tell those complainers who want a lighter burden. My little finger is thicker than my father's waist. Yes, my father laid heavy burdens on you, but I'm going to make them even heavier. My father beat you with whips, but I will beat you with scorpions. Man, what a response. Isn't that great? So interesting. And so Rehoboam rejects the advice of the older men, and he turns to another group of people. So this is what I think is going on here, and this may be right, this may be wrong. It's just my guess. It's me kind of entering the story. But my guess is that Rehoboam is like one of those rich kids. If you think about it, he's the son of Solomon. The pockets are forever deep, right? He has as much money as he wants, and so he's going to all these fun rich kid parties, and he's got all these moochers that are following along. He's going down to the over to the coast and having big like spring break parties and stuff like this. And so when he doesn't like the advice that the older men give him, he decides instead to reach out to all his party friends, right? The young men that he would have a good time with, and that basically he kind of funded their fun, if you will. And his friends say, well, I tell you what you've got to do. You've got to scare these people into submission. In other words, I'll whip you until your morale approves, right? This is what you're going to do, Solomon. Well, this is an epic fail. The country splits as a result of Rehoboam's choice. At the time when Rehoboam took over, all 12 tribes were together. Within the first just moments of his reign, the country splits. The tribe of Judah goes with Rehoboam, and all the other tribes go up to North Israel. And then you have this really sad state of affairs where God's people are split into two countries. So epic fail, right? I mean, big time fail that this guy had. And what we see in this story is the traits of an ungodly leader, right? And this is really important for us to hear, those of us who are leaders. I mean, some of these may not apply to you, but there are some things that speak to me, and I hope they speak to you as well. But the first trait of an ungodly leader is that they enslave their community, right? They enslave their community. They basically believe that the community is there to serve them and their purposes. Second, they seek to be feared. They want to be feared. This is their whole goal in leading, and this is how they motivate, is they seek to be feared. They try to scare people into following what their desires are and what they want. Number three, they make reckless decisions. This was a reckless decision. He even had the opportunity to make the right decision, right? He had the opportunity to make the right decision, but this is a reckless decision, and it destroys the people of Israel. He also, here's the fourth characteristic, is that he listens to the yes men. In other words, the ones who are all about flattering Rehoboam, the ones who are all about saying what he really wants to hear. In other words, a leader with an ungodly leader is only going to listen to the people who say what he wants them to say. He listens to the yes men. And here's what happens when an ungodly leader leads. When he is enslaving in his community, when he's seeking to be feared, when he's making reckless decisions, when he's listening to the yes men, he is pushing other people away from God, because this is not the character of God, right? But the godly leader is just the opposite, right? So the godly leader, according to these older men, they said, serve this community, serve the community, and they will be loyal to you forever. And so that's the first characteristic of a godly leader, is they serve their community. Second one is they seek to earn respect, right? They don't just believe that respect is given to them because they're in their position. They try to earn it, right? In other words, and that actually brings me to the third one, is that they make well-informed decisions, right? They listen to the leaders that are wise and maybe even have a little bit more experience than you do. Fourth, they listen to those who serve. Godly leaders listen to those who serve. And here's what happens. When we're serving our community, when we're seeking to earn respect, when we're making well-informed decisions, when we're listening to the people that we serve, we are leading people towards the heart of God, because these things are at the heart of what God does. This is exactly what we see in Jesus. So I want to take us over to one final scripture found in Matthew chapter 20. And this is the passage where the mother of James and John actually comes to Jesus and asks for a favor. She wants her sons to sit in the places of honor in Jesus' kingdom. And Jesus' response here is just so incredibly powerful and so hard to live out. Look at this, verse 25. But Jesus called them together and said, "You know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it will be different." It will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. This is such a countercultural way of leadership, right? But this is exactly what's going on with Rehoboam, and this is exactly what Jesus hopes for his church, for his community. I think that this style of leadership will work in the corporate world. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't worked a lot in the corporate world. I've been a career minister from the time I was 22 years old. But let me tell you something. When you serve the community that you're in, when you serve the people that you are the boss of, when you seek to earn respect by the way you live, when you make well-informed decisions by listening to the people that you serve, you are leading people towards the heart of God. And this, I believe, is the best leadership that we can have. And Jesus said that, that's the way my kingdom is going to be. The Gentiles, in other words, the people who are not my people, you know, they do this. They lord it over each other. But it's not going to be that way among you. And so my challenge is for all of us who are leaders right now to just take some time to examine, take some time to just look at how you lead and try to determine, am I being the leader that God has called me to be? And maybe there's something in here that has just tweaked your heart. And maybe it's something that you need to begin to change right now. So that's my message for tonight. Hope everybody has a wonderful Wednesday evening, and good to see those of you who got on and watched along. Be blessed, everybody.